Okay. Hello. My name is Eli,
I'm Danny.
and this is Eli and Danny Talk Movies. Today we are going to be talking about Backrooms, directed by Kane Parsons and written by Will Sudik and Kane Parsons, starring Chiwetel Ejiofor and Renate Reinsve. So we saw this movie together about a month and a half ago, maybe. It couldn't have been a month and a half ago, but we saw it a little while ago, and it was just us two. And we definitely came up with some opinions, not just a bunch of negative opinions and not a bunch of criticism, but just overall a lot of thoughts to be had with this one. We were initially going to do a dual review where it was going to be Obsession and Backrooms, but we just found ourselves talking about Backrooms the entire time to the point where we were like, let's just talk about Backrooms. Now, I saw the movie only once, and Danny had the opportunity to see it twice. But before anything, I think we should just start off with, if someone asks, what are your thoughts on Backrooms, what would be your general synopsis of your ideas?
If somebody were to ask me my thoughts, I would say that just as a whole, I really like the movie. I think it's pretty well made, and that I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I feel like I would say the same. I've always been the type of person that has to just say my specific thoughts so that someone knows exactly how I'm thinking. But if I just had to say it, I would recommend it to pretty much anyone, at least anyone who's open to more confusing stuff like that. Like, mom. Like, I didn't think she would like the movie, but the fact that she liked it, I think just tells how even something as confusing or mind trippy as the Backrooms could be, anyone can enjoy it, Uh I I think if I were to describe what I liked about it the most, I'd probably say the look. Like, just the way the movie looks. I think that's what's sticking in my mind the most, especially if I were to contrast it with something like Obsession. I feel like just Backrooms has a more unique look than a lot of other horror movies I've seen.
Yeah, I can't recall off the top of my head who shot the movie, but that's when you place the name
Yeah.
of the
Yeah, I know.
of the cinematographer.
Uh-huh.
I can't recall off the top of my head who shot the movie, but that is probably, after seeing it twice, that's probably the part of the movie I enjoy most, is just looking at it. Just really, really colorful, really bright, which is a nice contrast to I think it's a nice contrast to the just tone of the movie, having something so just vivid and just, it really pops. And the Backrooms themselves, they really pop. Like, it doesn't look conventionally creepy in how it's lit or how it's shot. It's very, very flat, but it's also very colorful, and it's just a nice little. It's a nice contrast to what you see in a lot of horror, and yeah, I like the look of it.
You know what, I was honestly, something I didn't say in our initial recording. Our initial recording was done a while ago, and it was horrible. we have a much better setup now. But something I didn't say that I just remembered right now was that when we were going into the movie, I was worried that they weren't going to capture the horror behind liminal spaces. Do you know what I mean? Because there's an appeal to liminal spaces when you see those pictures and so on. That it's just like, ooh, it's uncomfortable. And in pretty much every adaptation of Backrooms media I've seen, whether it's video games or people's short films on YouTube, none of them creep me out. None of them make me think like, what is this place? And they never make me as uncomfortable as just those like flash photography photos of the original Backrooms photos that people released or like came out with. But this movie, the horror for me wasn't the monster. Like, sure, the monster was creepy, but the horror, I guess spoilers, but the horror for me came from like, what's the next room gonna look like? Like, what else is here? Mm-hmm. And I will definitely say they captured that fear that I have of the liminal spaces, for sure.
I think a big part of it is because the movie isn't giving like its spin on the Backrooms aesthetic. It's just filming. It's just presenting it as it is.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't try to, like, kind of harkening back to what I said. It doesn't try to make it all dark, and it doesn't try to make it obviously scary. So the fact that it just captures the space as it exists, I think that it makes it more unique by just having it look like how the Backrooms look. And yeah, and oh shoot, what else was I gonna say? Never mind. All right, cut.
Just the fact that they made it look like the original photo of the office space with the fluorescent lights. Like, they could have gone with something completely different, because there's Backrooms adaptations that are like pools of water and stuff like that, and they do technically include those rooms, but you only get glimpses of them to make you wonder, like, how bad does it get, how much weirder does it get. But to have majority of the movie be the yellow office space look, it made it stand out. And because every room was pretty much lit the same, it made it creepy or unsettling when the small changes happened. So when you saw a corner that had no lights on, it's just like, what the frick is back there? What's in that hall? What's in that corridor? For me, going down that corridor slope was super unsettling. I don't know if it was like the way our little sister Veronica talks about it. She didn't seem scared of that at all. But when I was seeing that, I was like, I'm so uncomfortable with these piles of dirty clothes, that face thing in the pile, and the side lighting with the lights being all askew. When the changes happened, I was scared. Did you feel that?
Yes.
Just yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, everything's pretty, it's like weird and it's not quite normal. So when it does shift ever so slightly, or because the spaces are just so barren, you're going to notice any sort of change. So when, say, the cardboard cutout shows up, it's like, what's this? And it has like a wire or cord leading to the wall. And then you have like this hole in the floor with chairs stacked up in it. It's like, how deep does that hole even go? Who knows? Then you have these tiny little trapdoors with 3 handles on it. It just doesn't make any sense. Each time the movie kind of gives you a slightly more off visual, I think it really works. And then, yeah, you go into a room of dirty laundry, and that alone is enough to be like, it's so confusing that you don't understand it, and it creeps you out as a result.
It was the dirty laundry thing that I started wondering, like, okay, what is this place? Because I feel like with everything, like, from my knowledge of just the Backrooms lore, was that it's just, these are all items that just no clip into this space. And so they're all things from reality. But sure, you have like the weirdness of the pile of chairs and furniture at the very beginning, and the chairs are like stuck together. So it's like weird. Obviously, that didn't exist in real life. Maybe it did because it was in Mary's world. Maybe that's her mom just did that when stacking furniture against the door. But when we got to the pile of clothes, I was like, where on earth did that exist? Like, why is this guy's shirt here? Like, now it's starting to create its own versions of things. And then we see like the ultimate personification of that with the people, like their memories of people. But seeing the piles of clothes, it almost made it feel like, for me, like there was some sort of like malicious intent here, even though this thing isn't even like a living thing. I don't know.
That's the horror of it.
Yeah.
You don't know.
I don't understand it.
You don't know if it is evil or if it just exists, and that's what makes it creepy.
Now, I think the main topic to discuss is, for this movie, for me, is the characters. Because it really just narrows down to 2, and I am glad it's a small cast. Because if it was a whole set of characters, I feel like it would have been too much. But the fact that they narrow it down to just 2 people, you had some thoughts. And this is something that you said before that I wanted you to repeat now. Some thoughts on Clark's introduction.
If there was one thing in the movie that I probably had like more like any criticism of, it would be the characters. And I don't think they're bad particularly. I just think more so Clark, I think they come across as a little bit undeveloped, a little too simple, I guess, for my taste. Because with Clark, you introduce him, and it's very, it's like you introduce his character and you introduce his flaw, and that's really it. That's all you get of him. You don't really see much development of his character. You just kind of see the natural evolution of where this character goes based on what they give you in the beginning. They say in the beginning that basically he has a drinking problem. He has relationship issues with his wife,
potentially anger issues.
And that all that stems from basically his unwillingness to recognize his faults. That's basically that's Clark's issue. And then he gets introduced to the Backrooms. He is an architect.
Mm-hmm.
He is a freaking architect.
Yeah.
And then he gets introduced to the Backrooms, and the Backrooms then just act as a basically like an outlet for him to basically. It's almost like a pseudo therapy replacement for him instead of recognizing his problems and trying to work through them. He escapes into the back rooms, basically.
It becomes his comfort zone.
Exactly. And then
he learns to understand it, like he learns to understand himself and accept that he doesn't need to change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He goes into it and he basically gives up on change. And while I think that everything that his character goes through makes sense with what they establish his character to be, I don't think his descent into madness really hits as hard as it could have, because we don't really see much of that grapple with him trying to fight for what we don't see Clark really. We don't really see the battle. We don't see the battle in Clark's mind. We get why he makes the decisions he does, but we don't get to see them play out. And I think that results in his fate ultimately feeling a little hollow, and just it doesn't hit as hard as it could have. Mary, on the other hand, while also pretty simple, and the movie is a little more. The movie kind of gives you more breadcrumbs. Or I would say the movie kind of breadcrumbs her development a little bit more compared to Clark.
Mm-hmm.
But in the second half, they kind of just flat out kind of show you what her deal is.
Yeah.
I think her character arc, I think it works a little better because she ultimately is going through a point of how do I phrase it? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts, really, on Clark?
On Clark specifically, I told this to you before, and I said this in our first try, that I'm trying to not go into watching things, playing things, reading things, and be like, this is what they should have done, because then it's like putting myself as the arbiter of what's good storytelling, and that's just not true. You know, like I think I know how to criticize things. But that doesn't mean I know all of a sudden how to just make it better. But with his character, I've seen that strategy before where I can't tell you exactly where, but I've seen it before because it immediately felt like, yeah, I've seen this before with the therapy session acting out his problems. And I wouldn't say it was lazy. Because his acting carried it. I was interested in this performance, and I liked how stiff she was in contrast to how emotional he was getting. I was like, this is legit. Mm-hmm. But I have seen that strategy before of let's have them act out a scenario so that you get a perfect idea of this person and their issues. And I was hoping that we were going to get a fuller idea of those issues in the Backrooms itself. Because the Backrooms, the movie pretty much reveals, and Clark pretty much confirms, that it manifests memories. It manifests elements of your memory, things that you might vaguely remember and things that you might remember more vividly. And I was hoping that we were going to get some revelations about our main characters. That being with him, what did it really show us about him that we didn't already know from the first 5 minutes of the movie? The one part that I felt like we got something was when the monster arrives and his pseudo wife runs into the corner screaming. Mm-hmm. it made me uncomfortable because I was like, what does that tell you? Like, this guy was an alcoholic or is an alcoholic. He obviously has temper issues. He has some pent up feelings. Did it come out in other ways against his wife? And that's the only moment where it felt like we got maybe a hint at something worse than what we've been told. But it happened so late in the movie, and I wish throughout we saw glimpses. And with her character, with Mary, she's a therapist, and she clearly has her own issues. I like this storyline of a therapist who has their own problems trying to solve someone else's in order to fix their own. But she, from the start, it shows her at a party and she like takes like some pills or something to make herself calm down.
Yeah, something.
I was hoping that I was like, ooh, is this going to be like the Backrooms is a manifestation of his brain, and it's like her as a therapist invading his brain, trying to fix his problems, but it's almost selfish because she's doing it for herself, not for him. But it all builds up to, oh, it turns out he's crazy now. He's lost it. We don't really see his full descent. And then she has her big yelling moment at him, which I don't know if I don't know if you watching it a second time changed your reaction to that, but it didn't feel earned for me. I don't know if it was the performance. I'm hesitant to criticize performances because what do I know? But I don't know if it was the performance or if it just felt like it wasn't the natural next step for them to yell in that moment and say like, you're crazy. And then him accepting that he doesn't need to change. But it just didn't feel like the natural next step in the story. I feel like we needed some more little steps before then, so that moment felt earned for her to finally say something. Because the whole time she's fairly stiff. That's like part of the direction of the performance, and so her big moment didn't do anything for me. In fact, I feel like when I first saw that, I was like, ugh. Like I don't know, I don't like this very much.
It's one of those things where the scene when Mary lashes out against Clark, it's ultimately her coming to terms with the fact that she is in no position to try to help anybody because she herself is
broken,
damaged goods in her own way.
Gross. What a phrase.
So like, and there's a line, she says something like how she can't help anybody. And that's her coming to terms with her own faults. And then she lashes out against Clark and ultimately she doesn't. Wait, that's after she lashes out. And that's her. And then that's when he decides to free her. And then the monster shows up. But I think, as a climax to Mary's arc, I guess I feel like it works, but it doesn't. I think because Clark's side of it kind of rings a little flat. It doesn't or rings hollow. I mean, it doesn't quite hit as hard as it can. But yeah, overall, I do like the character of Mary. I like the way her childhood home and the way it was basically trashed looks very reminiscent of the Backrooms. Is like
they both have a space like that. Hers is her house, her childhood home. His is his store.
Yeah,
hers is something that she went through in the past. His is something he's going through now.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, for me, I feel like the shot that best, like, just like summarizes the movie is the descent from childhood home to the Backrooms. When
I saw that shot, I feel like I got like chills. Like, this is like, what does this mean? Like, this is creepy but cool. I don't know.
It's cool because like the Backrooms representing being a metaphor for memory, and in this case trauma, and for Mary's case trauma. I think it's cool that as it remembers the place over and over again, it doesn't look at all like what you remember it to be.
Yeah, but
it is built on the same grounds. It is the same it's inherently the same structure.
I wonder, I don't want to cut you off, but it that immediately came up, that made me think of the idea of like when people have some sort of trauma or thing that upset them. It doesn't even have to be as dramatic as trauma, but sometimes when people experience things like a long time ago, it affects them down the line in just ways that they don't understand now. Like, I read this thing once of a person who laughed, someone made fun of their laugh, and for the rest of their life they just became insecure about it, but didn't realize they were insecure about it. They just always laugh differently. Or like people that don't smile with their teeth because someone made fun of their teeth when they were a kid, and then they never smile with their teeth again. And it's like almost as a commentary on trauma and traumatic events. It's like the Backrooms is the, I keep using manifestation because that's what the Backrooms is. It's like the manifestation of your hidden skeletons, like the things that you've experienced in the past that are coming out now, and you having to confront it. You just don't understand it, and it's just a metaphor for therapy and seeking help and trying to uncover things that maybe you don't want to, and things that you are uncomfortable and make you uneasy.
Yeah.
That's what it is for Clark.
We have Clark who basically fails the lesson and gives into his worst self. And then you have Mary who comes to terms with her problems and is thus able to make it out of there. Which does make me think about the ending. I do really like the ending. Mm-hmm. I like what do you think of the ending?
Well, do you mean the ending like final frames, or do you mean like including the climax of the monster pirate Clark chasing her, the what's his name again?
Phil.
Huh?
Phil. Mark Duplass.
Mark Duplass. Do you mean like the stuff including Mark Duplass?
Sure. Yeah.
I don't want to be like Mr. Negative. It's just I didn't care for any moments that were trying to explain what the Backrooms are. I understand that they would naturally want to figure out what this is, but I was going into the movie not wanting it to be scientists in the Backrooms, because I had seen short film stuff with the people in the lab coats and the hazmat suits. And so I feel like I was going into that ending with like, I don't want to see scientists trying to uncover this, which they technically don't. They still don't understand it, and that's why they're gonna keep her there to try to talk to her and figure out what she knows, see what they can figure out. But initially, I didn't really care for it, and I guess I still don't. Maybe I need to watch it a second time, because I was in it for the characters. I was in it for Clark and Mary, not for scientists trying to solve this mystery. Regardless, I knew, I was like, okay, they're going to keep her in the back rooms, or they're going to keep her locked away somewhere because they're not going to want her to reveal this information. And then all of a sudden it starts cutting to the back rooms and a version of her sitting in that chair. And I can't even explain how it made me feel other than the blanket term unsettling. Like the idea that maybe something happened that now there's a memory of herself sitting there. Like, what happened? What happened to her? And why is this now being manifested in the back rooms? So it just made me uncomfortable.
Yeah. I don't mind the scientist sci-fi element of it too much, just because Phil doesn't come in to explain everything. If anything, he has just as many questions as she does, which I think is a nice twist on it. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's so common for a character to come in and explain to the character and audience what the circumstances are. And I like that this what are the Async, the company, the MRI company, they're just as confused by the place, because ultimately there is no understanding the place, the back rooms. And then for the actual ending shots of because we see the missing posters on the light post kind of devolve into the floor. We have her books or her self-help tapes in that library room, and it's just what is this? And then you have her broken down childhood home is also in the back rooms. It's so strange. And then you cap it all off with Mary's still alive, just sitting in the pseudo.
Is that what they were calling it? Still life?
I think so.
Okay, I forgot.
Sitting in that pseudo interrogation room or whatever. And to me, the ending, felt less like a to me the ending felt less like a setup or a final scare, and it just felt like an encapsulation of the movie and its themes. Like the movie was just kind of giving you one last taste of just one last little food for thought for what it all meant.
Yeah,
I think it works in that way. It's very low key, and I like it. I think it's fitting for this kind of movie. For it. Yeah,
I didn't want the big bombastic ending. It's not what I would expect for this movie, especially because the movie frames it so small with the two characters. So for it to just come down to the still life just sitting there like mindlessly or whatever it's thinking, because they obviously are capable of feeling emotions.
Yeah.
I'm glad it ended on a feeling of unsettling as opposed to me having an understanding of what this place is. Yeah. Obviously, you can interpret it in some ways. You can interpret it both in the movie what the Backrooms are, and you can interpret it as in functionally for the story what the Backrooms are supposed to be, like for the writers. My favorite interpretation, just looking at the Backrooms and what they mean, is I like looking at it as a physical manifestation of therapy. Of someone needing help and whether or not these people are going to get that help. There was something that I don't know what specific topic this would count under, maybe just the story, but something you brought up earlier was like, Clark failing the lesson, failing the message, and accepting his worst version of himself. And something that I said to you was I kind of wish it wasn't Pirate Clark chasing her. I like, yes, the monster's creepy. I like that it's practical effects. It's a real guy in there and not a CGI monster. I was worried it was going to be a CGI monster based on the opening of the movie. I was like, is that just CGI? Is that what that was? But it's a real guy in this costume with this makeup face. Like, that looks good. But I feel like if the movie had it be just actual Clark chasing her, it would be him accepting the worst version of himself is himself, because the monster is the personification of his worst traits. But if it's him accepting that, I feel like it should just be him as opposed to a monster. And because Clark, supposedly, we don't see it. I wish we saw it, since Clark has been spending the time mapping out the Backrooms, getting used to it, knowing where everything is. I feel like it would have been especially creepy if something with agency, like true agency, was chasing her.
Autonomy, I think, is the word you're looking for.
Autonomy. I don't know. The monster is creepy, and the shots of it, where it's just perfectly lit up and in frame, I was like, that's creepy looking. But what would have been more uncomfortable, I think, would be just a guy chasing her.
I think I agree, because you set up that Clark has completely lost it, and I think it's so over the top how much it's very over the top how much
them too.
he eats them. He has his former employees.
There's some on a plate.
I know.
That's so funny.
He has his former employee's head in the fridge. Like, this guy has completely lost his grasp on sanity. So I think this idea of him chasing her and potentially even toying with her in the Backrooms, because like he knows where things lead and she doesn't. I feel like that could have been a really creepy sequence of like the climax is just another person chasing a person, and it's not, and it's just like gross. Like, you'd expect the monster to be the biggest threat, but of course the biggest threat is ourselves, and that would be like a play on that. That would have been cool.
I feel like it would have been creepier for the audience and just more uncomfortable. But it also
just Clark with a knife chasing her,
and I think it would have just been thematically potentially more relevant. I understand why they had it be the Pirate Clark, because it's literally his worst traits turn into this monster. But we see almost a worse version of himself as the real person, because he cuts off that girl's head. He cut off her head. Like the monster's just a mindless monster as far as we can see. But his human self is the one that's like, he's the one with the temper. He's the one with the with who's gone crazy. I like, for example, when we saw him first entering the Backrooms, which I really liked that. I really liked just how quiet and slow it was, because what else are you gonna? You're not gonna run through it. Like, no one realistically would just run through that. They would slowly walk through and be like, "What is this?" And it's just such a long, quiet sequence of him walking. And when he got to that one room, because there was the room with the backwards stop sign, and it turns out it looped back to that when he had that small door thing with the 3 door handles, which I thought was cool. It looped back around. And then the next time we see him, turns out he has a lot of it mapped out already. Yeah. I thought that was foreshadowing that, like, because he has this place memorized, that's going to come up later, and he's going to help them get out of there or something. I didn't think it was going to end with him being, turning bad and being eaten by himself. Yeah. But I thought it was going to play into the climax more, but it didn't. Yeah.
I think kind of going back a little bit to the pirate Clark taking over real Clark, it would have been creepy, and I honestly would have liked to see that climax, but I think I get it. Like, I'm kind of to defend it. I guess Clark giving in to his inability to change and then being punished for it is ultimate, I think, also kind of saying that while Mary is very much a victim here, Clark is also a victim.
That makes sense.
The fact that Clark doesn't become the knife twirling like psychopath, it's paints him a little bit more sympathetically.
It was like a tragedy that he made this choice.
Yeah, and it I guess it kind of services the movie's themes a little bit in that sense. But
that makes sense.
I would have liked to see a psycho Clark chasing her, but for what the movie's doing, I get it.
Yeah.
And then with him, it does kind of feel like it would set that up with him like mapping it out, but then that also is just kind of plays into his ever-growing obsession of the place. So, yeah. But
that makes sense.
I see it in my mind. Tragic. I see Clark with like blood dripping down his wife beater or something. You know what I mean? Like, creepy. I could see it. That'd be cool. And then I like how the movie took its time. On the first viewing, I kind of worried, is it kind of bad pacing, that it's kind of slow, and it kind of feels like that thought too. Kind of feels like things kind of ramp up and then they slow down again. But rewatching it, maybe it's just because I already know what happens, but I feel like I prefer the slower, more methodical pacing to something quick and ultimately unsatisfying, because you don't get to really like take your time and really like, there's so many shots, it's just the walls just like superimposed on these people, and the walls are like the character in the shots, and the Backrooms is like the character in the frame, and the person is just kind of walking through it.
It makes it feel like this is beyond, like, because the characters are what controls the story. The characters are what control the story. The characters are the leading thing we follow that motivates the rest of a movie. But to literally have them framed tiny in these vast rooms, it makes it feel like this is beyond them, and it's breaking almost the structure of like what a movie is for the sake of just like making these Backrooms feel so oppressive. I think
something that, if there were ever to be a sequel or anything like that, I think something I'd like to see more emphasized is the labyrinthian. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Labyrinthian is the labyrinthian nature of the Backrooms. Because from what we get, we understand that it is like basically a maze with no exit, but we do just kind of get a lot of hallways until we don't, until we get a gaping hole in the floor and it's just a bottomless pit. But I think something I'd like to see more emphasized is something that I don't know how to do it, but something that would capture the scale of this place and just like it really is, because that was what kind of appealed me to the Backrooms originally. Like the concept was that the horror of being so like what's the word? Being so like what's the word for tiny? There's a more smarter word. Being so insignificant compared to the scale of this place. Like where does it go? Like how big is it really?
Yeah.
Like not being able to grasp how big this place is. I don't think the movie really evokes those feelings. If anything, if the movie feels more claustrophobic.
I feel like the only part that I had that feeling was when she was going up the stairs over the gaping pit.
Yeah.
Because it's like this place is bigger than you can imagine.
Yeah. It's very like, but the movie I think does feel more claustrophobic than it does grand and incomprehensible. And I don't know. I think that's something
every
I'd
room
like to...
felt relatively small.
Yeah.
You know, like each one has corridors and it's like it makes you wonder where does that go. But each room is relatively small in terms of like what you can see.
Yeah.
It's like mostly just the yellow walls.
Yeah. Like the ceiling is always basically right there. You know, it doesn't really... I don't know. I think something I'd like to see more emphasized is just how visually this place just is so confusing.
What I'd like, I agree with that. Basically adding more to the trippiness of just like what is this and where does this go and how big is it?
Yeah.
But also one of my first thoughts was like if they are making a sequel, because they're gonna greenlight, they probably already, I think they greenlit a sequel, right? He might be working on Portal, who knows? But I remember thinking like this movie's so successful. If they make a sequel, one, it needs to be completely new characters. I don't think it should be the same characters. Well, one of them's dead, but I was also thinking like, how do you do it without it just being a manifestation of? I'm tired of using that word. A makeup of someone's traumas. Like, how do you make it different? And so I was thinking, like, well, in this movie, it's a metaphor. I feel like it's a metaphor for therapy and addressing your trauma and your bad habits and trying to grow as a person. It's the evolution of a human being and them growing from their mistakes or choosing not to. And so I was thinking, I feel like the best way to do it in my mind would be don't have it be about that at all. Have the Backrooms be a representation of something else now.
Basically, make it an anthology series.
Yeah. So each time someone enters the Backrooms, it represents something different. For one person, it's them embracing their worst self. That's like what a way to frame it. But like if they want to lean into the sci-fi stuff with async, I bet if they do a sequel, they're gonna have like async be a constant throughout. One thing that I've seen, it's a funny interpretation of Backrooms that I've seen. It's like corporations trying to use it for like, you know, it's real estate. It is like filling it up with real estate. I would like if they want to go that route, they can focus on themes of like taking over spaces that don't belong to you, colonization, and thinking that humanity is the most important thing, you know, or I don't know where else you could go though for a sequel. But regardless, when I first watched the movie and left the theater, I wasn't very excited. I thought it was okay. You're still recording. We're still recording. We're good. But over time, because the movie leaves things unanswered purposefully, it leaves so much room for other options. And so if they do a sequel, which I hope they do, I hope it's different characters. I hope we get someone else's experiences in there and completely different themes. Because we covered the trauma, we covered the therapy. What else could we cover? Right.
No, yeah, I feel like there's a lot you could do. A lot of creative people can do a lot of stuff with this. So I'm excited to see if it goes anywhere.
And they're getting a different writer. So I wonder where it's gonna go. I just hope the character stuff, because my favorite thing, I've said this to you before, my favorite thing is character stuff. And of course, the movie is like, this movie does include it. I just think...
The characters are not what make this movie as gripping as it is.
I think the style is what makes this movie, but not the characters themselves. One thing that we didn't mention is, like, this isn't... this doesn't even really count as an appraisal of the movie, I think, because it's just like where they chose the film. But like seeing the locations that we've seen, there's road signs in the back rooms that I've seen in real life. McKee Road. Like we grew up in that area generally. Our mom grew up in that area, and so she would recognize those signs. Seeing the hills that we've seen growing up, street names. It was really cool. I feel like that area isn't filmed a lot. And so, or at least not in things I've seen.
Like in bigger movies that basically everyone watches.
And now this was the biggest horror movie ever.
Yeah, highest grossing A24 movie. So
yeah,
and they took a shot on Kane Parsons and it paid off.
Yeah,
so,
I remember when this movie was first announced. We both were like, okay, but we feel like we had like less matured mindsets then.
Well, I was just like, I found the Backrooms creepy for like a few months when I discovered them, and then I just kind of forgot about it, and the movie was announced, and I didn't really think much. But as it got closer to release, and then finally being like, oh, I
like,
do
this
want to
is
watch
a real
this
thing that's coming out.
Yeah, and I was like, it was as it got closer to release, the hype started to pop up again, and I remember why. Like, if I were to think of what a Backrooms movie would look like, this movie's basically what I would picture. Like, could have been a lot worse. It could have been really stupid, but the movie is not stupid. It is pretty thoughtful, even if it isn't. Even if the characters aren't super deep or anything, the movie is clearly like, it's not just trying to be schlock.
Yeah,
it's not just trying to satisfy the lowest common denominator. So, and it's not very. I don't think the movie's very. Like, I don't think the movie's overly confusing. I just think I feel like it respects its audience and is willing to not over-explain itself. So,
I mean, the way Kane Parsons talks, the way he talks about filmmaking and storytelling and his thoughts on AI and stuff like that, I just feel like he understands trusting the audience and making something with care, as opposed to hyped. Like I was worried this movie was just going to be A24 trying to capitalize on something that seemed like hype to people, like video game movie adaptations and like other adaptations. Like I thought it was just going to be them trying to make money off of something that they were like, this is untapped territory, let's make a movie. But it's like, no, they got someone who cares. And I feel like it was watching interviews of Kane Parsons that I was like, I am more interested in this movie now. And then it made me think about it more. And then it made me want to talk about it more.
Yeah.
But with that, do you have any closing thoughts? Or like, is there any other sections you want to talk about?
Not really. I guess I'm just excited to see where Kane Parsons goes next with his filmmaking. Because really, really strong start. So I feel like you can only go up from here in terms of like, well, I mean, sure. I feel like you can only really go up from here.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see where he goes next.
All right. With that, I'm Eli.
And I'm Danny.
And this was Eli and Danny Talk Movies. Thank you for listening to or watching our very first podcast episode. Our next one is likely going to be about Better Call Saul.
What's
Thank
that?
you.
I've never heard of that.